Before I ask for questions, and this is Mother's Day, and I'd like to take a moment for all of us to honor our mothers. And I want to honor Buddha's mothers also. And of course, all of you who are mothers, honor you as well. Buddha had two mothers. His birth mother was Queen Maya. She was a princess, the daughter of the king of a neighboring kingdom to the Shakya kingdom. And in the foothills of the Himalayas, where Nepal is now. And she married King Suddhodana when she was quite young, and for 20 years she did not conceive. Then she had a dream, and in her dream a white elephant appeared and circled around her, and then through her side entered her womb, through her right side. When she woke up, she realized she was pregnant. As was the custom, she traveled with a retinue, of course, to her father's house to give birth. That was the custom in those days. And on the way, the retinue paused in the Lumbini Gardens, very beautiful gardens. And when they were in those gardens, she gave birth. She was holding onto a branch of a sal tree, a beautiful tree. And holding onto that branch, Buddha came out of her right side. So the Lalita Vistara Sutra, which recounts the whole life of the Buddha, tells us that Buddha had been in the Tushita heaven waiting to be reborn. And he was that white elephant and so forth. Maya died within a week of childbirth, and her younger sister became Buddha's mother. When she died, she went to the Tushita heaven. And Buddha, 7 years after his awakening, visited her in, actually not in the Tushita heaven, but the next heaven down. Forget the name of it, something like the Tata Vista, that is the name of it, I think, heaven, and taught her the entire Abhidharma for 3 months in the monsoon period. So he never forgot his mother. And she also would come down to that heaven and kind of summon Buddha up when she had some advice to give him. So she never forgot her son. You can imagine what kind of advice it might have been. Here he begins teaching. He has a sangha of monks. He must have had a lot of problems on his hands. And one of them actually appeared in the person of his stepmother, Prajnapatari, excuse me, Prajnapatari. She and a whole lot of other women wanted to take the precepts, become monastics, become nuns. And they had been asking for this for some time, and Buddha was not so sure of the politics here, that his monks might become upset that women had the same status that they had. But she came in person, Prajnapatari, to ask him. And he still said, oh, I don't know. And Ananda said to Buddha, please, look at what you're doing here. So score one for Ananda. But Buddha didn't go all the way with this, and he said, yes, of course, my mother can become a nun if she agrees to the 8 strict rules, the Guru Dharma, they were called, which was just for nuns. And the first one was that if you have been a nun for 100 years, you still must bow to a monk, even if he has only been ordained for 1 day. Well, I think we've gotten beyond all of that by now, but it's taken a couple of millennia to do so. So let's be glad we are where we are now. The guiding teacher of this Zen Center is a woman, and I bow to her right now. The vows are originally Sanskrit, and in the Sanskrit there is no pronoun. So the first vow is Jung Sang, and many beings, Wu Bian, no limit, So Wan, 2 words for vow, 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 Do, save, transport to the other side. And the other 3 are similar in their grammatical construction. So these strong vow words, 2 words for vow repeated twice. And maybe we should have kept it that way, or maybe we couldn't think of a good second word that means vow. And so these pronouns were added, either singular or plural. I think that we went with the plural because we are indeed all in this together. And that we are the sentient beings that we vow to save all together save all beings. I think that's the original import of the vows. So I would be happier without either personal pronoun, I or we. But if you have to have one, I'm happier with we than with I. Although you take the vow as an individual, you yourself are responsible for everyone. So there's something to be said for I as well. I think when we have ceremonies, Buddha's birthday, Buddha's Enlightenment Day ceremonies, the very end of the ceremony, it's been our custom at the Kansas Zen Center to chant the Four Great Vows in, well, not in Sanskrit, but in the Sino-Korean pronunciation of the Sanskrit, you might say. I'll chant it right now, and I can't invite others to join in because it'll be another cacophony. But this is how we chant them. It's how Zen Master Sung San used to chant them solo at the end of every ceremony. And I listened to that for years, and we decided we'd just learn to do it all together. So it goes like this. Chung se mu u byon so wan no bone mu u ji in so wan dan buman mariang so wan hak Bulto Musang Sawan Sang. And I misspoke earlier. That is actually a translation. It's Sino-Korean translation of the Sanskrit original. When this word is translated, when you look up a word in a Sanskrit dictionary, it's where it's just a language of synonyms. So it can be translated as delusion, but also as vision. So as a woman's name, I don't think it would be in the derogatory sense of a delusion, watch out, she is, but a vision to behold. And I think that's how it's used as a female proper name. But you're right, it is the word that sometimes is quite correctly translated as delusion. And of course, everything that we see is in some sense a delusion, not what it seems to be. And so we have to see through it to its true essence, its true form. I don't think that's actually present in the female name. It's simply, I don't think we have a woman's name that would closely correspond. I've never heard of Vision or View as a woman's name. Maybe someone can come up with a possibility there.
Thank you.
It's a different, it's beyond in the vowel and bon in the name. Zen Master Hae, we share the Hae. My name is Hae Kwang, and that was deliberate on the part of De Kwang Sunyang, who gave Judy transmission. So his name is De, and he was originally from the Kansas Zen Center. So De Kwang, Hae Kwang, Bon Hae. So it's kind of a family sort of thing. When you take 5 precepts, you get a Dharma name, 2 words, just like Bon Hae or Hae Kwang. And you keep that name. If you eventually get transmission, you get a transmission name as well. So my 5 precepts name is Gong Myo, which means something like empty, mystic. And Judy has a wonderful story about when she took precepts. So the name is given to you by the precepts teacher. So your name means original smell. What is original smell? Then, you have to, that's like a Kongan question. So you would have to manifest original smell, something like PU or something, I don't know, or wonderful fragrance. But Judy took it as PU, and they go, oh, my teacher doesn't like me and call me a bad name, original smell. It could be translated just as well as original fragrance. So that's how I think of Judy's name, original fragrance. So the Hsin Shin Ming was composed by Sang Tsang, who's the 3rd ancestor after Bodhidharma in that line of succession. It's it's certainly the oldest Zen poem, and I think you would have to say it's the oldest piece of actual Zen literature that we have. We do have some talks perhaps by Bodhidharma, but Sang San is I think, aptly credited, accurately credited with the Hsin Shin Ming. So it's written in Chinese. It's 36 4-line stanzas. In a very clipped Chinese, each line has only 4 words. All the words in Chinese are monosyllables. So standard Chinese verse, each line has either 5 or 7 syllables. So the 4-syllabic line is very boom, 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 boom. So I translated it quite a long time ago. I translated it because the owner of Dharma Crafts, whose name I'm blocking on right now, before she owned Dharma Crafts, she had a delivery truck. I forget what she was delivering. Her name is Diane Eagles. And she had a lot of downtime, and she happened upon this pamphlet, a translation of the Hsin Shin Ming by someone named Clark, I think, and she would just read it constantly. And so she asked me if I would translate it, because I'm a translator, and I did. And by that time, she had Dharma Crafts. So she had 1,000 copies printed, this little pamphlet, just like this big, with maybe maybe 4, 6 stanzas on each line, so not very thick. And she put it in each order. When she packed it, she would put a copy of the Hsin Shin Ming in it, my translation of the Hsin Shin Ming. So she was like a Hsin Shin Ming apostle. So at least 1,000 people, got copies of the Hsin Shin Ming. Then later I had more copies printed up, and we had a lot printed up recently, and I think they're available, not available right now, in the bookshelf of the Kansas Zen Center. So the opening stanza is, "The great way is not difficult, just don't pick and choose. Cut off all likes and dislikes, and it is clear like space." Clear like space instead of clear as space was one of Hsin Shin Ming's favorite sayings, clear like space. The true way is clear like space. Clear like space is clear like a mirror. Red comes red, white comes white. Someone is hungry, you give them food. Someone is thirsty, you give them drink. So that's how our minds are when they're perfectly clear. We know exactly what to do because we see what is exactly before us. The main theme of the poem is oneness, is non-duality. Not to is an expression that comes up several times in the Hsin Shin Ming. Just say not to, and you're already there. So, 2 lines from the Hsin Shin Ming. So it gets quoted quite a lot, and in the Temple Rules, which is what Todd was quoting it from, I think. The first 2 lines are from the Hsin Shin Ming, but the second 2, Zen Master Sung San either made up or got from some other source. It's a wonderful poem, and you can find it in the Zen source book, which is a book that Judy and I and Steve Addis, with whom I had translated the Tao Te Ching, compiled a number of years ago. It's Chinese, Korean, and Japanese primary sources. It's called a Zen source book, and the complete Hsin Shin Ming is in there. And I think it's probably available on Kindle now. It's published by Hackett Publishing, and I think all of their books, as well as being in print, are available in Kindle. So that's the Hsin Shin Ming. So thank you for your question. Hsin Shin Ming means trust in mind. It's 2 different shins, 2 different Chinese characters pronounced approximately the same way. So trust in mind.